the preschool classroom. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. I'll be collecting them for Dr. Vanita, and in the Q&A session, she will answer them. Okay, thank you. Dr. Vanita?
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Redost. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be in this conference on new directions to talk about creative assessment in the preschool classroom. As Redost have mentioned, I am from English Language Teaching Center, Ministry of Education. Actually sharing the PowerPoint slides with you.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 minute. So that's the title of my presentation today, Exploring Creative Assessment in the Preschool Classroom, a new perspective towards literacy development among young learners. Now, I'm working with a group, with my team. These are my beautiful ladies, Puan Munira, Puan Nurliana, and Puan Nur Izni. They are in my team in the department. And together with the Malaysian Examination Syndicate and the Institute of Teacher Training, we are on a national program called Assessment Literacy. What I am going to share today is basically based on the findings and experiences in this program. So basically, we will be talking about context-based approach, the role of assessment in the preschool classroom, alternative assessment, creative assessment in the preschool classroom, and finally, we will look at how creative assessment drives through the literacy development among young children. And we all know that there are many reasons why we assess. We assess because we want, in the language classroom, we want to see how much a specific language skill has been acquired. We also run diagnostic tests to see the issues and how we can inform our instructions. And mostly when teachers are concerned, teachers run assessment in the classroom because they want to assess performance level of the children. And using that data that they find, they want to inform the instructions. However, in the context of preschool classroom, we believe that traditional classroom testing procedures will not be very relevant because it poses a great deal of anxiety and it affects their language learning. Children basically need to learn in an environment which is anxiety-free or rather anxiety-reduced. So if you notice, the National Association for Education of Young Learners have proposed DAP, which is actually developmentally appropriate practice. Now, according to this approach, the emphasis is given on the developmental level and learning style of the whole child in terms of physical, social, emotional, and cognitive needs. And through this approach, we actually propose active learning through physical and social experiences to help the child construct their own understandings of the world. So therefore, play, an eminent part in a child's life, is a powerful tool to explore in their world. So this is basically the concepts behind DAP. And if you see in the Malaysian context, preschool education is aimed to provide children the confidence to use the language both in and outside the classroom. So we focus on fun learning approach, child-centered learning and classroom activities to help them solve problems and make decisions. And we also focus on the utilizations of learning centers. So the principle followed by the Malaysian education system is DAP as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, children, as we talk about preschool children, we know that they come to school, and school is where they are exposed to the different culture, a different culture with new experiences, new literacies, new technologies, new languages. And these experiences should be taken into consideration when we are talking about assessment in the preschool classroom. So in relation to this understanding of their lives and their social experiences, their social endeavors daily, so I think it is only relevant that we talk about context-based approach, CBA. Now, CBA is not so much different with communicative approach. There is communication still coming in, but what's more important in context-based approach is that the teaching and learning environments should be harmonious with their learning styles and expectations. The word harmonious is beautiful here. We need to engage both their experiences at home as well as at school, so that learning becomes meaningful for them. So that's where the culture comes in. And when you talk about culture, it's about the language structures that they're exposed to, the traditions, the communication strategies and devices, basically the semiotics that we need to consider when we talk about context. So these are the literacy experiences that we should think of when we are talking about assessment in the preschool classroom. So when we talk about, when we talk about assessment in preschool classroom, it should not be for the purpose of grouping the children, for the purpose of labeling them or grading them, the purpose of measuring how much they have learned, to put them in a certain standard performance, that everyone should be reaching that standard performance. It should be not these aspects, okay? In a context-based approach and alternative assessment, okay, the key point is to see whether the child has reached or the child shows a certain level of growth at a certain point in his life, and this kind of information can inform the instruction so that we know how to develop or to help this child grow to the next level. So these are information that we need to collect rather than grading them. And according to alternative assessment principles, it takes into consideration the variation in students' needs, their interests and learning styles. So alternative assessment basically proposes authentic and performance-based. And for this presentation, I'm actually focusing on creative assessment, which is also performance-based. The team that I mentioned earlier, okay, we actually ran a workshop on creative assessment in preschool classroom with a group of preschool teachers. So we explored a number of activities in this workshop. As you can see, we explored board games, hopscotch, and some language games. And what we found from this workshop is that there are plenty of possibilities that you can explore, okay, with children. This is not something new that I'm actually talking about. If you see in other countries, like in the United Kingdoms, the curriculum for young learners, education for young learners actually has a lot of this kind of play-based activities coming in. The forest school concept, for example, is a platform that actually brings children to have that social engagement with the environment. Now, it is, when we talk about literacy development, it is not only to look at how they are engaging with the environment, but we also need to track somewhere how this engagement with the society, how this engagement with the environment helps them to develop in their literacy. So we also explored some of the instruments that could be used for us to track these activities. So you can see we tried some, we have had this observation grid where teachers were given the steps on coming up with observation grid, following the principles behind designing these instruments. We also had anecdote records. We also had some portfolio examples that we shared with the teachers. So these are some of the instruments that can be useful when we talk about creative assessment in the preschool classroom. Now, if you look at the advantages of using creative assessment in the preschool classroom, you can say easily that it reduces the anxiety, or rather sometimes it is anxiety free. Okay, they are playing, they don't even know that they're sitting for an exam, or they don't even know that somebody is observing and tracking what they are doing. And it's fun because it's, like I said, it's an eminent part of their social life. It enhances the teaching and learning process. It informs the teacher as well as it helps develop the child. And at the same time, when you talk about creative activity, you can actually include parents and community. You can get them together to do these activities together in school, at home. So basically, the whole ecosystem is involved in assessment. So I think this is a great idea of proposing creative assessment for preschool classroom. So before I end, I would like also to say that the goal of preschool classroom is to support literacy development. And creative assessment provides this opportunity. It encapsulates the social experiences that a child goes through, okay, into the education. Everyone takes part, is an ecosystem involvement. And I think if this is what if we believe education is to bring changes into our children's lives, if education is about growth, then I think we should consider creative assessment and explore further on what are the possibilities that we can have in our classrooms. I think that's about all my presentation, Redost. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vanita. There are a few questions.
Yeah.
So one question from our audience is the following. Does the assessment in this context refer to assessment for learning or assessment of learning?
Okay, do I answer that straight?
Yes, please.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that question. It's a very clear answer to that question. It's definitely assessment for learning, because we are talking about how we use assessment as a learning process for the child. It's not for us to measure how much they have learned. Yeah, so therefore it is not of learning, but it's for learning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other question is, what challenges do you encounter when conducting assessment in preschool education? Very interesting question. I'd like to know about that.
Yes, very interesting question. Very often when we talk about assessment, the concept of validity, reliability comes in. So that's one of the challenges that we have, that, in getting our own teachers to produce their own assessment instruments, because there's always a fear whether my question is valid, whether I'm following the requirements of what I'm supposed to test. Yeah. But when you come to preschool assessment, okay, I think the question of validity is a component that we need to deal with differently. What I mean is, you need to get, like I showed the instruments that we used for recording the children's growth and, their behavior. So this kind of instruments has to be validated. And how do you actually validate that? You need to give the specific skill to the teachers. Okay, when you come up, yeah.
I'd just like to add to this. Do you find, well, I'm sure you do, but what kind of differences do you find in terms of teaching preschool and maybe middle, higher school, or even adults?
It's a total different thing, When you encounter these preschool children, okay, there's not so much of, what shall I say, structures that we expect from them. But when we are going into primary and all, there's certain kind of conventions that we actually expect to see. But when you are going into a preschool classroom, you don't actually expect to see those kind of conventions coming in, because that's where actually they are going to start exploring the conventions. It's a very beginning stage. So that's why the engagement that we are going to have with them is going to help them, survive the conventions when they are ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. There is another comment and question from another person from our audience. They say, Dr. Vanita, I share your views completely on creative assessment for preschoolers. As preschool education is yet to be streamlined in Malaysia, how do we get preschools to implement this? As it is assessment is very academic based.
Yeah, I would like to, it's an interesting question. Okay, when we talk about streamlining preschool education, okay, it is in the pipeline. I shall not comment further on that, but what we are looking is that, we are looking at the preschools under the Ministry of Education first. This we all agreed that, preschoolers, they are the grounding, that's the grounding level for them. And we need to do something for them so that, the development of literacy takes place dynamically as they grow, right? So yeah, we are looking at creative assessment, not academically. Yeah, we are looking at it as how it supports the learning process. Yeah, that's how it's going to be totally different. That's why I'm stressing that it is assessment for learning. It's not gauging how much they know, how much they have learned, but how much they are progressing in school. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Thank you.
Another question. You mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about harmonious environments. How can we make our environment more harmonious, I guess, for children especially?
Yeah. And that's interesting. Harmonious is a beautiful word. Harmony is a beautiful word. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess if you handle the class in such a way that, the line between teaching and learning is so thin that it is a one process, that there's no segregation between teaching, learning, and assessment. It's actually a one process that it goes on, in without any disturbances. Like you don't tell your child that, today I'm going to teach you this and you're going to learn this, and today I'm going to assess you on this. These are the structures that, will not bring harmony into the classroom. It should be one process that a child comes to school because he's coming from home. And at home, you don't have these structures, these conventions. They just come to school. And when this is a transition period for them. So I think it is important for us to provide them that kind of environment, which is not so totally different than what they experience in school. So perhaps that's an answer on how we can actually bring these two processes together into harmony.
Thank you. You also talked about different methods to show children's growth. What, in your opinion, are some of the best methods?
Okay, I'm coming from the language point of view. Yeah. So when we use play-based, for example, we get a child to do a specific game, okay? and we record. Okay, for example, in the Malaysian context, English is a second language, and we have poor command of vocabulary and that kind of thing. So perhaps if the teacher is trying to give help to this group of children to get vocabulary knowledge, so there are different methods of doing it. Perhaps you want to have a game, a hopscotch game, and get them to like start with a 2-letter word and then 3-letter words, then see how much they can handle. I mean, these are the pedagogies in the preschool classroom. So we need to explore. We need to explore, but what's more important is that we need to come to an understanding that in a preschool classroom, when you talk about language learning, it should be fun. It should be exciting. It should not be creating anxiety among them. Yes.
Well, I agree with you. But also, as I also used to teach children.
Yeah.
How, I guess my question here is, how do we think we can make teachers move away from thinking about assessment, okay, like more structured type of assessment, which might be better for older groups, but maybe not so good for preschool
yeah.
children?
That's a very challenging question. Yeah.
Challenging.
How do we get teachers to move away? It's not a very simple question. It's kind of complicated because, again, I'm speaking from the Malaysian context. We have a curriculum to follow. We have expectations from parents, from community. So I think teachers will have to deal with all this before they even decide on how they want to structure their lessons. But then again, if if we are more proactive in what we are doing, if we are in a sense that we find best practices outside and we try and look at each child as an individual and see how we can actually help that particular child grow, I think that will be helpful for teachers. You need to get more help, have a greater network outside to see what's happening around you. Because I think in other countries, and in Singapore, for example, a lot of creative activities, in the curriculum for preschool children. Yeah.
Hello. Let's see, did we lose Dr.
Hello.
Vanita?
Hi.
Oh, hi. Okay, we just lost
Yeah.
for 1 second.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I could hear you.
Back on.
Yeah.
One more question that comes to my mind, because again, as you mentioned, different countries have different approaches. For example, I know in Finland, they have gone away with homework, for example, for preschool children.
Yes.
While other countries, places where I've taught in Europe, for example, they were very heavily reliant on homework and all kinds of different assignments and assessment, even for preschool children. What do you think? Do you think homework is that important for preschool children, or do you think teachers should be they should take a step back?
Yeah, I certainly don't agree that homework in giving the kind of work that we give our primary school children to bring back home is not relevant for preschool children. But I think we need to look at homework in a different point of view. For preschool children, I think homework should be like, continuing the games at home or bringing back a book for the parents to read. That engagement, like remember I mentioned the ecosystem, getting the whole ecosystem involved will help the child grow positively.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we have any more questions. We still have a few minutes left, but if we have any more questions from the audience, unless you would like to share a few final remarks with us.
Oh, okay.
Just
We're actually working. Yeah. Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Because it says that the internet line is unstable.
We can hear you.
All right, okay. So there's some important questions that you asked just now. We will look at it at different dimensions. One of the challenges that we do have with preschool assessment is that, teachers, the way they perceive assessment, that is one of the challenges that we have. But I think give it a period of time. Even in Finland, it took them almost a decade to make that change. So I think slowly we need to educate our community on this creative assessment, and get them to see the importance of this kind of activities in a preschool classroom. Yes, they come to school.
Sorry to interrupt you. One final question just came in.
Yes. Yeah.
What is the main subject in preschool education in Malaysia?
In Malaysia, okay, there is no such thing as a main subject. It is a cross-curriculum kind of education that we offer. But now we have a new curriculum for the preschool education, where English language is given a focus as much as our national language is given. So we have 600 minutes of English language a week. So with that focus, English the ministry is giving a lot of focus on helping children learn language in better environments, with better curriculum and, understanding. And also we are giving a lot of, in our institution, we are giving a lot of support to preschool teachers where English is concerned.
Yeah, that's quite important, right?
Yes,
Support for teachers.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your insightful talk today. It was wonderful to learn about preschool and interactive assessment activities in Malaysia. For everyone in the room, please stay. Our next speakers are from Indonesia, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.